The Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water Sewer Commission for Thursday, December 6th, meeting will come to order. I'm going to have Commissioner Turnipseed do the invocation, and I'll lead us in the pledge. If you please rise.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Father, and we thank you for the opportunity we have to represent the citizens of Glynn County. Guide this meeting, help us to make the right decisions. And Father, just be with our staff. And Father, help us to remember this Christmas season and what it's all about. And help us most of all to be a shining light, just like Jesus was when he came to this world. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Krista, do we have anyone for public comment? Okay. We have an employee recognition, Commissioner Harvey and Ms. Barnhart. And we need Michael Allen Tweed. So if his supervisor and his come forward. Stand up there. That's fine.
This is to certify that Michael Allen Teague has received his water collection system as a wastewater collection system operator. And this is wastewater operator, is it 2, 3? What color? Collection. And by the certificate, it states that this employee is now permitted to practice as a wastewater collection system operator in the state of Georgia and entitles all the privileges allowed under the Registration Act of Georgia. The Georgia State Board of Examiners for Certification of Water and Wastewater Treatment Plant Operators Laboratory Analyst recognizes Mr. Michael Allen T. as the new wastewater collection system operator. Now, Mr. T, I tell you, coming to this organization, we only hire the best, so we expect nothing but the best from you. You have a great supervisor, and the superintendent is outstanding, and they will help you move up the ladder. Okay, but you have to give your best and give your all at all times. Only the best come to this place here. So we're happy that you're here. Happy that you decided to come and show your skills, share your skills with us, the Joint Water and Sewer organization. One of the best organizations in the state of Georgia. I know it's in the city of county of Glynn. So we're happy that you're here with us. And this certificate certified that you are certified to do all the things that this certificate allows you to do. Okay? Off my hand. Thank you. Oh, we're gonna take a photo? Yes, sir. Beautiful people. Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay. The commission is going to go into an executive session next for a few minutes for legal matters. Could I have a motion to go into executive session?
Make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. We're in executive session. Gentlemen, please go to the commission.
Not executive session?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, we're back in regular session. We'll wait until Commissioner Stevens comes back, and at that time, we'll take a vote on the minutes. And while we're waiting, if you want to go through the minutes real quick and make sure that you're satisfied with them. Commissioner Stevens, we already voted ourselves back into regular session. So we're to the minutes now, so whenever you're ready, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes of the November 15th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from November 15, 2018, regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, if we can now address the minutes of the executive session of November 15th, 2018.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from November 15, 2018, executive session.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Minutes are approved. You want to pass your copy? Okay, the first item for approval is contract award for CCTV work Phase 2 and 3 downstream North Mainland SPLOST project. Pam Crosby.
Good afternoon. What we're looking for today is contract award for CCT camera inspection. This is part of the 2016 North Mainland SPLOST project. This will be for evaluating the Phase 2 downstream improvements that need to occur. The memo before you kind of just gives a brief description of the project. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this one before. And there's a map in the back that shows the area that we're talking about. Basically, it's about 14,000 foot of CCTV work that we need a contractor to come in and do on some line that has some deterioration. And what we're trying to do is see what we can actually correct the condition through pipelining and what will actually have to be completely replaced. Obviously, our desire is most of it will be able to be lined, and that'll help keep down the overall cost of the Phase 2 and 3 project. The details of the solicitation and the procurement process we went through are outlined. We issued an IFB at the end of October. We had a mandatory pre-bid conference with 6 firms in attendance. All 6 of those firms did submit a bid on Thursday, the 29th of November. There's a table in the middle of the page that gives you the amounts that each bidder submitted. And after evaluation, this is a responsible and responsive bid, and we're making the recommendation to award it to Southeast Pipe Survey for the $55,448.75 amount.
Okay,
Has Southeast Pipe Survey done work for us before?
Yes, sir, they have.
They did a good job.
Yes.
This is for the Whitaker Avenue line,
Whitlock, yes. Mm-hmm.
Whitfield, what?
Whitlock, and then it'll be
Whitlock,
a
yeah.
portion after that between 35 and 36.
This portion from 4035 to the plant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And most of that's concrete pipe.
That's correct.
We've televised some of it. How much of it have we televised? We're gonna re-televise that too,
We're
Andrew?
gonna re-televise everything. There's some of the sections that have actually already been lined.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually going to televise that again just to verify that the liners that are in there are still in good shape. And they're gonna televise it without bypassing, so we won't be left without no endeavor. So we're gonna televise all of it, even the sections we've already done, just to verify before we go in and try to spend a lot of money on that line that we're doing the right thing.
The one thing, it says when they're gonna start, but when is it gonna be completed?
So
How many
it's a
calendar
60,
days do we have?
it's
in the
60
tank?
days that we've given them. And so one of the things that you'll see in the next upcoming months is for the engineering work that we need done for Phase 2 and 3. This will be a deliverable for the engineering firm to evaluate, because the first portion of that project that we're going to want is a bid and spec package for the CIPP
Right.
lining work.
Yeah,
60 days includes getting all the reports in, not 60 days just to get the TV work, it's the TV and give us the reports at the end in the PACP format.
Right, so basically with the holidays and everything, we're saying a start date the first week or so of January, and, you know, by March 1, we should have everything as a deliverable to be able to give to the engineers for evaluation.
Now, they be bypassing any of the sewers that have a high flow in them so we can get a good video?
What we're gonna do is, try to coordinate that by holding flow at the station to give them time to get through most of it. We're not gonna try to bypass just because some of the traffic in some of these areas. If basically, they're gonna try to float it and see what they can do. If they don't feel comfortable floating, we'll try to hold it in the station, and, this will require, we're gonna do some night work on it. Or they will be doing some night work on this as well, because that's when the flows are the lowest.
So you have a 60-day window to complete the work?
Yes.
And do you have a date, a last date to begin work designated, or is it open? I
So-
heard you say they're around
Right, so the
January.
tentative week that we want to execute the contract will be immediately after this, and then we plan to issue the notice to proceed and have the pre-con the first week or two of January.
So that's up to you to decide when the work begins?
We'll talk to the contractor and come to an agreement on when the notice to proceed, then it's 60 days from the
From
date the
that.
notice to proceed is issued.
Okay.
Because, you know, with the holidays and all, they may want to go ahead and get started, or they may need another week, but, you know, we've got that time in there.
Yeah, and I would say what I know about Southeast Pipe Survey, they're a good company.
What work did they do for us?
They've done some TV work in the past, they've also done some lining work in the past. Some of the lining work, you get different interpretations of how well it went, but the TV work has went well in the past for us.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've done business with them before, and we've got all their references and projects. They're based out of Patterson, Georgia, so they're relatively, you know, close by, and we'll be able to mobilize pretty easily as well.
Okay.
But we're familiar with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they did some of the major work on St. Simon's back before JWSC was stood up. I mean, some of the very tricky work over there, and wet wells and all, so.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I make a motion that Brunswick-Glynn County, Glenn Joint Water and Sewer Commission accept the bid of Southeast Pipe Survey Incorporated in an amount of $55,448.47, and enter into a contract for services to complete CCTV, camera and manhole inspection as specified for the Phase 2 and Phase 3 portions of the 2016 North Mainland SPLOST project.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
How's it being funded? Which funds it
First
coming from?
spot,
Sir?
this is the spot.
It's part of the SPOS project, yeah.
Oh, I see it now.
Okay.
Which SPLOST is that?
North Mainland spot.
North Mainland's
It's
SPOS
2016.
2016.
SPLOST.
16.
2016.
Yeah, it's on there.
It's on it.
It does, yeah, 2016.
Yeah.
Mainland Sewer Improvement Project.
Okay. If we're ready, I'll call a vote. All those in favor for the motion, please raise your right hand. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is the assistance program.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
Customer Payment Assistance Program, Mr. Darby.
As Commissioners will recall, the JWSC solicited bids from local community service organizations to act as a third-party administrator for the JWSC Payment Assistance Program that was enacted through their legislation in 2016. Coastal Georgia Community Action Authority, Inc. submitted a bid and was selected. We're now entered into an negotiations, and you have before you a proposed agreement. The overview of the proposal is that Community Action will implement and operate the Customer Payment Assistance Program designed to provide emergency assistance to eligible customers of the JWSC, funds for which will be collected by voluntary donation from customers of the JWSC and others in a manner substantially similar to Community Action's existing low-income home energy assistance program, and further provide related eligibility determinations, program marketing, and financial and performance reporting as described in the agreement. The disbursements of the program funds will be made twice monthly on the 10th and 30th of each month. Comprehensive reports will be due to the JWSC no later than the 15th of every month and shall set out the financial resources of the program, including all assets and expenditures, as well as all of the relevant metrics. The administration fee will be equal to 15% of the amount of assistance provided and shall be payable from the contributed or donated funds. Community Action further agrees to engage in customary and reasonable marketing activities within the service area of the JWSC to support and promote the use of the program. They will also provide additional wraparound services and resources to eligible applicants, including resources related to case management, housing services, employment services, income management, and energy assistance.
Do we get a report from them on, a monthly report on how they're handling that funds?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That'll be on the 15th of every month.
Yeah, how is it determined, who's gonna get assistance? How they do that? Is it,
There are parameters that are outlined by the JWSC, and they evaluate applications pursuant to those parameters.
okay, so it's something that we've kind of laid out for them to use?
Yes, sir.
It
I
says
think
in
it's 100 and
section 2B,
So
Be
JWC gonna be the ones to decide who gets this assistance?
no, sir.
no,
No,
You said the parameters, who put the parameters in?
JWSC, I believe it's 125% of the
this, of the
poverty
federal
level.
poverty
That's
level.
right. Right. So it's, if somebody makes an application and they fall within that parameter, then Community Action will award them assistance.
So what about when there's not enough money for all the people that are applying at 125%? Do they dispersing it evenly, or do they say this is the greatest need?
I believe that's up to their discretion.
That is their discretion.
Okay.
It also says it can be for repair and replacement of the customer's infrastructure.
That's right.
So that could be their service lines too, if they have a problem with the service lines.
So first serve, first come, first serve. Somebody can put in a $10,000 request, they're the first one that does it, and there's only $25 in the account. They got the hold on it till it gets to 10 grand?
Part of the plan is we're gonna have a cap on the amount of assistance that they can have. And what the agreement is here is just for us to enter into a contract with the Coastal Action Authority, and then all those program parameters will work out.
With the assistant payments will, are they based on a month-to-month decision? When I say decision, in other words, if someone comes in and meets the thresholds and they got the application in quick enough and they're gonna get assistance, is that assistance just for that month, or is there, I mean, I'm hearing that if somebody might come in there and it might take 2 or 3 months worth of money to get certain infrastructure paid for.
The hope would be it would be a one-time assistance because of a particular situation that's going on. Part of the reason we, like Coastal Georgia, was they do the wraparound services to help with the whole case management and not just the payment assistance part of it. So they would be entered into that program as well to try to help them with other parts to make sure they don't get in that situation going forward.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with Coastal Georgia Community Action handling this, no problem there. I mean, they do a good job of these kinds of things, but how about the funding? Wouldn't that funding vary from month to month, depending on our people that's paying their bills and how much they want to set aside? I mean, from month to month? So,
Well,
yeah,
We had talked about establishing a minimum level in the fund to help grow the fund, but at this time, we didn't propose that in the contract.
this- this-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I was gonna say, this is one of these things, that we've never done this. We've seen what other people have done, we're trying to model it after that. So we may have a little shakiness
we're gonna have
starting
some
off.
growing
till we-
pains.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's to be expected, but I think it's something that the community needs, and those people that are having problems will want. And there's an article here, and I'll make a copy of it, or have a copy made, of assistance programs that's being run by Great Lakes. It's much more robust than this, but It may be a direction we want to go in the future.
Well, I'm ready to make a motion. Before I do, I want to go on record saying I want us to be prepared to hear about how it's not working, as well as how it is working, and be prepared to, make any changes or do what we can to tweak it, make it better as we move forward with this, what I think is going to be a good program, so.
Yes, sir, and that was one of the reasons why we put the short termination for any calls within 30 days. If we see that there's an issue that has arisen, we can terminate the contract with 30 days' notice.
And when that happens, what happens to the money left in the program?
Well, it's in a separate account.
In our name or in there?
John, I think it's in, it's,
It will probably be in our name, so because we'll be collecting the money and we'll need some method to disperse that to them via check on the remittance dates.
I mean, I agree with Mike. I think it's a needed program. I do think we need to tie up loose ends. If there's anything like that, do we need to strengthen the language and say, if we cancel the contract, you don't have 30 days to disperse everything, and to how you see fit. You cancel the contract, then you need to disperse what's already committed. But otherwise, the rest of it rolls back to us. And not that we would put it back in our general coffers, but we probably, give it to another firm who's doing the same thing. I think we need some language to protect ourselves.
We have to, because we're just acting as the pass-through collection agent for the monies. We're not involved in dispersing them or anything else.
That's my point.
Are we protected from overspending the fund?
what do you mean by that?
Well,
For spending the fund?
the Coastal Georgia Community Action Authority gets to choose how much is paid out.
At this time, yes, sir.
And is there protection that they cannot pay out more than is in the fund?
They certainly can't pay out more than is in the account, that's for sure. But there is no minimum balance, if you will, for the account included within this contract. There may be one at the bank's level, but not in this contract.
Does it functionally, what we're talking about is helping to pay the bills for water sewer. And so does that just show up on our bill, on the bills that we give the customer? Does it show up as a credit on their bill, a certain amount? Or is there actually money that comes from them to us after it's come from us to them? That's why I'm wondering how, if it's digital, it could be overspent. If it's a credit on the bill.
But it wouldn't show up, it would show up as a charge on the bill. So if somebody's bill is $40.59, they would have.
The other way, the money that we give out, we're gonna help, that'll show up as a credit on their next bill, right?
And it would be all coming
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, coming back
Right.
in.
Community
That'll
Action
show
will
up as a
cut
credit
us a
too.
check, right.
Actually, the money goes out from JWSC to this firm. They give the money to the customer, and the customer pays his bill, and it shows up as a credit. Is that correct?
Essentially.
And I think the purpose of what we're trying to do today is get the agreement with Coastal so that all of those details, because it's gonna take hours on their part and ours to work out how it actually administers down to the customer level. Because there's some system stuff we have to do, and then we need to make sure on that process. But this is just the agreement to work with them.
Yeah, but the agreement needs to be pretty Loctite. I mean, the agreement that, authorizes them to disperse money and gets our money back if something happens and we cancel, it needs to be Loctite before
And
Chairman Elliott's signature goes on it.
Yeah, you
it
mean-
is not, make no mistake, this is not JWSC money.
I was fixing to say.
Sure, no, I understand that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it will
not.
be given to us as a contribution, essentially to put in this account to be used
Right.
elsewhere by community action, but
But we're
if we
going
do
out and
away
asking
with
the
this
general public
program.
to trust us
Yeah.
to administer this program. I think it needs to be.
Right, right. I
Um,
mean, if we decide to shut down the program, that doesn't go into our account, is what I'm saying.
I don't think it should immediately come back to us. What I think it should go to is the next, coastal community, whoever, who is gonna
Right,
continue
yes.
the administration of that program.
Right.
Let me ask you this, someone that comes in and asks for assistance and they get it, are they actually going to receive the money in their hand?
I would, I think, Commissioner, those are some of the details that we'll have to work out.
Yeah, okay.
I would prefer that that money come directly back to the JWSC rather than go to the customer and go somewhere.
Yeah, maybe we could get a list of account numbers and who was awarded credit, and then we could apply that credit to the bill, because there might be one or two folks maybe pocket that money to get their hands on it.
I can't foresee that money going to the customer.
No.
If it has, it's gotta be made out to JWSC to a check.
And the discussions
Just
that
needs
we've
to be
had
applied
from
for
them
credit.
is that we'll have a voucher system like
Right.
that.
Okay.
Where there's like a report.
Okay.
And one of the things, and I don't mean to say anything, but I don't know if you remember this, one of the reasons we selected them over some of the other folks that applied is, with them already being a nonprofit, they administer like a lot of grant money. And so some of the audit requirements that we want for the program, they are very familiar with those and file those kind of financial reports. So there'll be a lot of transparency on what happens to the money.
Yeah.
And,
I think what we want to see or read or whatever is that this program is going to issue credits
not cash.
to the needy, okay? Yeah, issue credits that can be applied, and how that works back to us, okay.
Yeah, voucher credits.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
And some reporting that shows, that reconciles the credits against the balance.
Do that too.
So we know that we're not
Yes, sir.
overspending the balance.
Those reports are issued on the 15th of every month.
Is 15% customary?
Yes, and yes, we check that against some other people's programs for their administrators. And in the proposal that they gave us examples of what the reports will look like and some of the look and feel of what we should expect to see. So,
So does this need to be farmed up for the next commission meeting, or are we comfortable with it as it stands, and then?
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah.
Because they just said they gotta work out some of these details, how it's actually gonna work.
Now it's gonna be spent.
But, I think the agreement's the agreement would,
Well, we can vote for it and then have
Coach,
them, make sure that, with the stipulation that the agreements be worked out,
yeah.
you know, before the chairman actually signs it. We can say.
Yeah, this
we
is
agree with
just,
the
yeah, this just approving.
In principle.
Comfort.
I just wanna know, does the customer, when they need assistance, do they go directly to Coastal Area Action Authority, or do they come to JWSC? Okay.
They are referred by JWSC to Coastal.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion. I hereby move that the JWSC approve the Customer Payment Assistance Program agreement with Coastal Georgia Community Action Authority Incorporated.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion?
Yes, sir. Those things that I said before about these qualifications and so forth be worked out before you sign these things. I mean, the agreement is fine, but the intricate details have not been farmed out yet. They don't have it yet.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, we'll sign this agreement, but we're looking for a more definitive agreement to sign?
That's fine, yes, sir.
Okay.
Or just a statement of the mechanical processes we
Mechanical
use to make
process.
everything work.
We'll come back to the
Back
to the commission for review.
I think specifically there needs to be language added that says if we dissolve the contract, that money is placed into an escrow account of some sort that cannot be spent, you know, until the new people are on board with the contract or something. I mean, I personally think specific language should be in there. I mean, I don't think it's difficult language, but
No.
if the contract
No,
is.
that language is in the legislation that created the fund. It's
Yes,
in a
okay.
separate account.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a JWSC account, but the JWSC cannot use any of the money in it.
I meant that this organization couldn't use it. They couldn't further disperse if we cancel it.
They wouldn't have access to it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So is there any other discussion? There's a motion. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Motion is carried.
Cool.
All right, I'm moving right along.
Okay, operating agreement.
Yes, sir, the 7th operational agreement addendum and SPLOST 2005 intergovernmental agreement regarding sewer improvements. Commission recalls the 5th addendum to the operating agreement amended the operational agreement to allow JWSC to receive direct disbursements of eligible SPLOST funds proceeds from the city and/or county for approved water and sewer SPLOST projects beginning with SPLOST 2016, and authorize JWSC to complete such projects. The county and the JWSC now wish to accomplish the same goal with regard to one of the remaining SPLOST 5 projects. On November 8, 2005, voters of Glynn County approved the imposition of SPLOST to be collected beginning January 1st, 2007 for the raising of an estimated $124 million for the purposes of funding certain capital outlay projects, including improvements to the water and sewer systems in the city and county. The approved SPLOST 5 projects for Glynn County included various water and sewer capital outlay projects, including a wastewater treatment project. SPLOST 5 proceeds actually received from the State Revenue Commissioner were substantially less than estimated, resulting in a shortfall and reduction in the amounts originally estimated for many SPLOST projects, including the water and sewer projects. SPLOST 5 proceeds in the amount of $1.48 million have been allocated and reserved by the county for the completion of the SPLOST 5 water and sewer project described and set forth in Section 4 of the agreement. The seventh addendum to the operating agreement attached for your review and voting approval will further amend the operating agreement to allow JWSC to receive direct disbursements of remaining eligible SPLOST 5 proceeds from the city and county for the approved water and sewer projects under the terms agreed to within a separate intergovernmental agreement. The JWSC will first vote on whether to approve the seventh operating agreement addendum. Additionally, the county and JWSC desire to enter into an intergovernmental agreement attached for your review and voting approval in order for the county to allow for the disbursement of eligible SPLOST 5 proceeds to the JWSC for the water and sewer project and for the JWSC to complete such project under the terms set forth in the IGA. If the operating agreement addendum is approved by the JWSC will then vote on whether to approve the IGA subject to the city and county approval of the seventh operating agreement addendum. Through the IGA, the county and JWSC agree that the project is to be funded in whole or in part using the remaining $1.48 million of SPLOST 5 proceeds allocated and reserved by the county specifically for this project, and shall be used for mainland wastewater treatment plant capital upgrades and improvements at or near the site of the Academy Creek wastewater treatment plant in order to increase capacity and improve sewer service in mainland Glynn County. The JWSC agrees to promptly perform and complete the SPLOST 5 project and understands that it's solely responsible for the completion of the same. If any unspent SPLOST 5 funds remain, the JWSC remain with the JWSC after the JWSC is satisfactorily completed and funded the SPLOST 5 project. Such remaining funds shall be deemed excess funds immediately returned to the county and disposed of by the county as provided by Georgia law. JWSC also agrees to promptly proceed with the acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project. The JWSC understands and agrees that it must fund and complete the project and that the project cannot be abandoned even if the actual cost of the project exceeds the amount of SPLOST proceeds received from the county under this agreement. Following discussion, we'll need a vote first on the operating agreement and subject to that approval, we will then need a vote on the IGA.
I've got a couple of questions. Is this all of the remaining SPLOST 5 projects?
The operating
It's just
agreement,
one of the SPLOST 5 projects.
the operating agreement applies to all three remaining, but the intergovernmental agreement only applies to this one project.
Because we got Adler Circle, it's
That's right.
$200,000, and there's another project in Brunswick, I believe.
I believe that's
Think
right.
so. What's happening with those?
There'll be a subsequent intergovernmental agreement related to those.
Can you repeat what you just said, which one applies to, you said one of them applies to all three, one of them doesn't?
Right. The operating agreement amendment applies to all 2005 projects, water and sewer projects. The IGA only applies to this one project, the Academy Creek project.
So shouldn't we have a IGA for those other two projects too?
We will, eventually.
Why don't we have them in this too? Get it all cleaned up at one time.
I think one of them goes to the city, for one thing.
Okay, but what about Adler Circle, because we're having issues there too?
Yes, sir. I was directed to do this one first.
Okay,
It is on his list, though.
Yeah, I've already talked about it. What's the value of which one?
It's the second one that we had, the second one with the county.
I think
Round numbers.
I think the Holly Street auditorium is like 500 or 600,000.
600 and some change.
Okay, I've got a couple of other comments. It says that $1.48 million and some change is remaining. So obviously about $20,000 of that was spent on what was the original scope of this project. Am I correct?
I'm not sure what that was spent on.
It was.
I think it was the
What was
waste
the,
load
By us
allocation and-
changing this, will we have to reimburse that $20,000 since it was spent on the original scope?
that would be a county issue.
Okay, then let's go back to section 4 because it says something in section 4. I'm concerned about the wording in section 4.
On which document? The
It
intergovernmental
refers to
agreement?
section 4 3 or 4 places.
I'm
It's
sorry?
set forth in section 4 of this agreement. And then if you go to section 4, it's on page 3 of 9 also. But then under section 4, and I'll read it, 4B, it says the county and JWSC has carefully considered said growth reduction and change in development patterns, as well as the reduction in available SPLOST 5 proceeds, and have determined and concluded that the wastewater treatment needs of mainland Glynn County and citizens of Glynn County will be served by capital upgrades and improvements to the Academy Creek wastewater treatment plant. The county and JWSC further find and determine that said allocation of funds toward capital upgrades and improvements at the Academy Creek wastewater treatment plant is consistent with the purpose and intent for this SPLOST 5 project and accomplishes the purposes and end goal, which is to increase capacity and improve sewer service in mainland Glynn County through a mainland wastewater treatment plant capital outlay project. As it relates to increasing capacity, it's treating the sewage, it is increasing the sewage transport capacity, but it's not increasing the treatment capacity. And I don't know if that should be changed. And my other question is, it says that the county and JWSC has carefully considered said growth reduction and change in development patterns. To my knowledge, the JWSC has never voted or considered that. Now, maybe the county has, but I'm not sure JWSC has. And I would just like some comments on that. Okay.
Comments from me? Or
From anybody.
What's your question?
I've got questions. When did JWSC agree that it says if carefully considered said growth reduction and change in development patterns, and have concluded that the wastewater treatment needs of mainland Glynn County can be served by the Academy Creek wastewater treatment plant?
I think that's what you're determining right now with
Yeah,
the,
that's
with
what
an
we're-
affirmative vote on this
Okay.
agreement.
That's what's in front of us right now.
Okay.
I don't think we've carefully considered that yet. So I don't see how we can vote on it.
Well, I think we can. Call for a motion.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
So
I hereby move that the JWSC approve the 7th operating agreement addendum.
I second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion is carried.
What about the other vote?
And there's a,
No or abstaining?
What?
Are they voting no or abstaining?
Okay, abstentions? Nay votes?
Nay vote.
Okay.
Okay, the second motion would be in relation to the 2005 intergovernmental agreement.
Okay,
All right.
can I have a motion on that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I hereby move that the JWSC enter into the SPOS 2005 intergovernmental agreement for sewer improvement, subject to the county and city approving the 7th operating agreement addendum.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Saying,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Discussion, I was getting back to Mr. Turnipseed, Commissioner Turnipseed's, thing, that section 4, the way it reads a little, difficult here. Saying that, exactly what it's saying.
Are you referring to JWSC has carefully considered said growth reduction and change in development patterns?
No,
That's
about,
item B?
Item B, yes, I am. I'm concerned about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree that I haven't seen any presentation on what the expected growth patterns are now, or change in the development patterns. I know what the master plan said, and I know we've talked all around, the master plan's not correct, but I've never seen what we expect a new plan to be so that we can actually come up with a reasonable decision on what we should do based on what the new growth forecast is.
Yeah.
And this item is stating that we have.
Well, we did, as we had gone through this, the county has gone through this over the last 2 or 3, 4 years, and that determination had been made, and this is the culmination. It's taken this long to get this to us. I know some of y'all have come on the board since all this work has been done, so that's where we are. I mean, we're here today to go on ahead and take a vote on this, and I would like to ask you all to understand that a lot of work and a lot of thought has gone into this over the last 3 or 4 years, and to continue to support us to go and keep going in this direction and get that money where it's much needed, which is at Academy Wastewater Treatment Plant. So,
And I appreciate what the county's done, but this just says that the JWSC, and to my knowledge, the JWSC has not done that. But that's one issue.
Okay, so if we strike the word JWSC from it, is that possible?
If that's the vote.
The county has determined it.
well,
Well, the county's still gonna have to approve this.
Yeah,
well, back when Dale Provenzano was chairman here, those discussions and determination was made, and at that time.
I know we didn't vote on it, which is what these gentlemen are asking for. But it was recognized that growth out there was not going to occur by the JWSC.
Well, yes, and we all realized we had a recession in 2008, so that affected a lot of things. So I understand all that. But the JWSC has not decided that that's how we want to go. Now, I mean, you've already had to vote on that.
Well, that's what this
particular
is, that's what this is before us today, too.
My I guess, heartburn is a couple months ago, we talked about in here, does the North Mainland plant even make sense to explore? And we all talked about those SPOS money out there that was kind of allocated for that. And now we're voting without further really discussing it. bringing
I
it
don't
issue.
recall us ever saying that we needed a North Mainland plan.
I didn't say we said we needed one, I said we discussed it. There were people in here discussing, not that we need it, but that we ought to evaluate whether it makes sense to have it.
Okay,
And we haven't closed that evaluation. So I'm not saying, I'm not against this conceptually, I would just like a little time for us to have a conversation and say, does
Well,
it make sense to allocate
I
money here?
think that the
or
needs
here?
of Academy Creek are greater, and we have other funds to devote towards studies.
Well, we're fixing to
Yeah,
do a GFA loan for Academy Creek.
yeah.
Well, we don't have to borrow as much.
That's what we talked about a minute
But the
ago.
reason, excuse me, gentlemen, the reason why I brought this up, because I just didn't like the way that wording was made there, because it referenced the fact that, that we, as JWSC, decided that, along with the county, and basically this is something that the county has decided, and so, and we, that money can be used effectively, no matter how we, whatever word, it can be used effectively by JWSC. And that's one thing that I believe that we can do, irregardless of what we do with our North Mainland project. That belongs to us. We will decide as to what we do with that. And I don't think the county should tell us what we should do with that, what we do with our project. However, they control the SPLOST, so they are well within their right to do as they see fit as far as how to direct those funds for whatever they decide for us to do with it. That's just my opinion on that.
And I don't know that I agree that the Academy Creek is the greatest need. It might be, but until we've looked at that, I don't know that it is.
Okay.
It's not.
I'm sorry, I disagree with you.
Yeah, that's all
You
I'm
don't
saying.
have the capability to know that.
That's
We
my
have a
point. That's
staff
why we
that
need to look
tells
at
us
it.
that.
That's the point, looking at it.
Okay, that's where the money is.
Right.
Devoted towards the North Mainland. That's where it needs to go. We know that. Those of us who have been on the commission for more than a year understand that.
You can get mad if you want to, but I mean, it's my opinion that we
Okay.
ought to look at it. And that's-
Okay, I think we've had enough discussion. I call the vote.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, yeah,
We
we have a
voted on
motion on the table.
Say again? I know we do. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, all those against the motion, please raise your right hand. We have 4 in favor and 3 against.
Thank you.
The motion is carried.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is the Village Area Drainage Project, MOU.
Yes, sir. Pier Village MOU with Glynn County. Glynn County is engaged in a public project pursuant to SPLOST 2016 to evaluate stormwater drainage issues within the Pier Village residential and commercial community on St. Simons and to determine reasonable solutions for potential improvements based on hydrologic conditions. Hydrologic conditions that fall within an approximate construction budget of $600,000. Improvements related to this project will be undertaken in 2 phases, the first of which will address conveyance improvements and the second of which will address capacity improvements, including reversal of flow of the Georgia Street system, redirection of the flow of the Butler Avenue system, and relief of capacity issues at Grove Retention Pond. The project will also involve replacement of small drainage pipes that hinder the flow of stormwater along Mallory Street, Beachview Drive, and Lord, Oglethorpe, and Butler Avenues. JWSC, consistent with its purpose, desires to reimburse Glynn County for items related to water and sewer infrastructure. Overview of the proposal: the county agrees to make, through its selected third-party contractor, certain water and sewer improvements in conjunction with the county SPLOST 2016 Village Pier Drainage Project, and the JWSC agrees to reimburse the county for its actual costs in making such JWSC improvements. JWSC improvements to be made by the county contractors and reimbursed by JWSC consist of the items listed in the MOU attached here too. Glynn County will pay its selected contractor directly for expenses and costs related to the JWSC improvements in the manner set forth in the contract with said contractor. JWSC will reimburse the county for the county's actual costs and expenses related to JWSC improvements within 30 days of the county submitting a request for reimbursement, along with supporting documentation to JWSC. JWSC does not have any third-party rights to enforce the contract between the county and the contractor. Either party may terminate the MOU at any time, although any improvements already made shall be reimbursed by the JWSC.
Charlie, does this document specify how much money we're talking about, or is it an open-ended agreement that we're going to refund whatever is spent?
It is an open-ended agreement because the JWSC has little idea what's under the roads in the Pier Village. However, the agreement can be terminated at any time that the costs exceed what we want to spend. Todd, you want to talk about the estimates?
Yeah, thank you. Commissioners, the engineer of record that designed this project for Glynn County also took all the information that we had on record for water and sewer infrastructure that would be in conflict with the work that's going on. They developed an estimate based on this conflict, so around about $59,000. In the part of the bid, they included an alternate with two bidders, two responsive bidders, Glynn County put a lump sum price on that. One came in at 47, and one came in at 14. So we're expecting just somewhere south of $60,000, according to the engineering records estimates. But as Mr. Gormley said, there's a lot of unknowns. We get the pavement removed, see what's actually underground. And there we don't have exactly an exact number, but we'll be out there with them along the way tracking it. We can assign a not to exceed, or I think that any given time, there's a time we can bow out of the contract or the MOUs.
You said estimate of 60,000?
That was the engineer record, the design engineers.
Did you say they've already taken bids, though, and they had two bidders, and one was 14 for this amount, and the other was 50?
Correct.
Who are they gonna award it to?
It's been awarded.
To which one?
It's Washington County.
Now, the Washington County, did they have $50,000 for the relocation of our utilities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as an alternate.
So basically by us approving this, we're anticipating spending about $50,000 on this.
That's gonna be in the ballpark.
Okay.
What we're expecting to have to do in here is 2-inch galvanized replacement.
Okay. Because it's got a whole list of items here, and I don't know if we're gonna have all those items.
Right.
But I didn't want to enter into a memorandum of understanding without having some ideas to the cost of it.
Understand. Yes, sir. That's fair enough. We asked them to do the line item deal, just so that as we encountered the issues, we could,
When they're gonna start work on this?
The 7th is, January 7th is notice to proceed. We've already had Glynn County's already had pre-construction meeting. We've already had one meeting with the villager merchants. That was on Monday. Pretty good turnout. I didn't attend myself, our senior inspector did. County Commissioner Murphy was there as well. About 16 of the business owners down there came.
And when's it supposed to be completed?
It's a 8-week project, very aggressive.
Okay.
8-week project.
And is Washington County doing the work, or they're gonna sub it out?
The contract is actually with Georgia Paving Corporation or Company. There's a name. We've done work with that entity we have with Hires Paving Company. They're in this region. Washington County is gonna do the underground. They're partnered up with them.
That's the actual county of Washington, when you say Washington County?
They're
Washington
actually,
County Machine Shop is.
Okay.
they are in Sandersville.
Yeah, or Griffin Utility,
Okay, that makes sense.
I don't have
So-
the contract in front of me,
I
but
think we need to change this memorandum of understanding and put it for an estimated cost of $50,000, $60,000, or something.
Or a not to exceed
Not to
amount,
exceed, yes,
some amount.
if that's how far we're going.
Just as a cap to protect ourselves,
Or at least a point of reference.
in case they find a German U-boat underneath there.
well, that'd be cool.
I'm still hoping for wooden pipe.
Oh, my.
Thank you.
We don't need that.
I mean, at any point
What
during the
is-
project, we can tell them to stop.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. What's the time frame that this needs to be executed in?
Their notice to proceed date is the 7th of January, so it's gonna move really quick.
And we don't wanna hold up work in the village. I mean, that's gonna be a busy area come spring break, and, I mean, we need to get it done this winter.
They're gonna be ordering materials and such, preemptively.
So,
But I agree, I mean, I think there ought to be at least a point of reference in here. I mean, if it's not a hard cost to exceed, at least it's a point of reference other than it being $2 million. Not that it will, but I'm just. And the proposal just say, I mean.
Yeah, you can add that to the vote, that, under section 2, whatever wording you want.
Motion say, under section. Not
No.
making a motion, somebody, would hereby move the blah, 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 with the exception of adding.
I would say hereby move the JWSC approve the MOU with Glynn County related to the Pier Village drainage improvements, subject to revision of section 2 to include an estimate of
$60,000. $60,000. Can I just say so moved? Right, sure.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
I wrote all that down. You stole me, man.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay, making sure.
Was it 50 or 60?
Conversation.
He said 60.
All right, is there further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the memorandum of understanding between Brunswick-Glynn County Water and Sewer Commission and Glynn County, please raise your right hand. Vote 7 yea votes. Motion is carried. Okay, village, the liquid oxygen tank analysis.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We spoke at our last meeting. We brought forth a proposal to amend the existing liquid oxygen supply agreement with oxygen supplier Matheson. And part of that was to lease a second tank from them. If you recall, we currently lease one 13,000-gallon tank and own an 11,000-gallon tank. At that time, the commission requested information regarding the financial decision of leasing the tank for a period of years rather than purchasing the tank. And over the past few weeks, I have been tracking down quotes and such on these tanks. One of the things that was also requested was that we locate maintenance records for that tank. We have no maintenance record of that tank. I don't know if that's because we have done no maintenance on it or we just don't have records, but the wastewater plant has no maintenance records of anything occurring to that tank that we own. However, Matheson contracts with a third party. I don't remember the name of the company that does the tank inspections for them. In 2017, they provided the notes that you see there. That is his wording. So any typos and/or shorthand is from him. Copied it from an email of him. So there were safety concerns mentioned, the significant problems with the valves, and there was some concern about even being able to deliver to the oxygen to the existing tank. And that there's just some, they were concerned about the ability to swap out rupture disc and things because they're afraid if it ruptures, they won't be able to get one back on it. So given the safety concerns with the tank, we feel like we need to move forward with a new tank, whether that's through the purchase or the lease of a tank. So looked at the proposed agreement was a $1,300 a month agreement to lease a 13,000-gallon tank. We had a pre-bid for this project mid-November, and we had a individual that told us he could get us a tank for $75,000. That was reported at the last meeting we had in the memo that Ms. Crosby put forth. I have attempted to contact that individual on multiple occasions. He has yet to return any phone calls since then. So I did reach out to multiple other individuals, large national tank companies that supply these tanks for a variety of people. Because if we move forward with an existing bid, I did not want to put names on here in case some price changed in between there. But basically, we ended up with three numbers besides the $75,000: $192,000, $220,000, $232,500. So personally, I would say the $75,000 number is probably not valid since he won't call me back, and because he's 40% the price of everybody else's tank. So if you take the average of those numbers, including the 75, you're looking at about $180,000 to buy a tank. If you're looking without that 75, you're looking around $215,000 to buy a tank. So on the financial part, we're looking at, I looked at it two ways. One is if we took the whole $1,300 a month off from the lease agreement and compared to it, assume a $30,000 installation charge for a contractor to put this tank in. If we do the lease agreement, Matheson will place the tank without charging us. So, but $30,000 to install the tank, and you get an average ROI on that for 13 and a half years if you include the low number, and about 16 years if you include if you do not. I talked to Matheson and said, what is the maintenance portion of that $1,300? Because they perform maintenance on the leased tank. The maintenance on the lease tank, he estimated was around $400 a month, which makes sense. That's a $5,000 roughly a year in maintenance. So if you take that and just take the 900, which is the 1,300 minus the 400, and say that the 900 is actually the lease and the maintenance would still be the $5,000 a year, you get an average payback between 19 and 26 years, depending on whether you use the low number. So if we assume that the $75,000 quote is valid, you're looking at a payback period between 13 and 19 years. So if we split it right down the middle, let's say 16 years. If you assume that number is invalid because it's out of range with all the other quotes, you're looking at between 16 and 26 years, so about 21-year payback on that. So now, if we want to move forward with a tank purchase, we would request an increase to the project budget for the Academy Creek oxygen supply upgrades in the amount of $260,000 for the tank cost, installation of the tank, and then contingency above those two costs of 5% to cover recreating the bid package, performing the rebidding, and any structural engineering changes that are necessary in case the tank that we end up purchasing is different than the tank that we would end up leasing. So we would have to make a budget adjustment there. We're also looking at most likely changing the existing timeline 16 to 20 weeks to allow for everything for the tank to get here and everything like that before we got started out there. So assuming we wanted to do it all in one contract, it would be about 16 to 20 week difference. So at the last meeting, it was requested that I provide two motions for consideration by the commission. One, to extend the existing lease agreement, to amend the existing lease agreement to include a second tank for the 84-month period. There's also a 60-month option that we could go to as well. And the other, to go forward with the purchase of the tank, which would be the second motion down there, which would basically amend the project budget by $260,000.
You're recommending the first, though?
I personally recommend the first, but I mean, we can go either way with this. If the payback was the 6 to 7 years, like the $75,000, I certainly can understand purchasing a tank. If we're looking at a 20-year payback, then maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense at this point, given all of our other needs.
I'm curious, Andrew, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items here that you've discussed about concerns about the existing tank.
Yes, sir.
And all of those items, I think, are fittings or auxiliary to the tank. Is there anything wrong with the existing tank itself? Or are we talking about replacing the tank because of the fittings that are faulty on the tank?
Well, I will say that the inspection occurred before I got here. We have wording from Matheson and from the commission. They made a presentation around Matheson. Who was our supplier prior to Matheson? Air Liquide came and did a presentation to the commission well before I got here, and apparently from the minutes it was determined that that tank was deemed unsafe at that time, and that has been ongoing for a few years now. I do agree that most of this would be external to the actual tank itself. You know,
we changed the fittings out and bought a maintenance plan, and then bought the oxygen by molecule, bought the molecules, then I'm just wondering if that was considered, or if it's even a reasonable consideration.
As part of this, I will say I did not consider that. I don't think it's an unreasonable consideration. I do think we would have to get somebody else to do that work, because that's just definitely not our bailiwick to get in there and mess around with tanks and stuff like that.
Could Matheson give us that price? Could they evaluate that and give us a price for that?
Matheson has basically said they would prefer not to work on that tank because of the liabilities associated with it.
They'd rather not.
They'd rather not work on our tank because of liabilities.
They don't want to do. They wouldn't do rehab the tank.
They do not want to rehab the tank. If we lease the tank, they will remove the tank, take it back to their facilities, and then try to rehab it there. They do not want to try to rehab it on site because of the dangers of liquid oxygen pouring out everywhere.
Are they gonna give us something for the basically for the tank they're taking?
They have implied that they are giving us something for the tank by only charging us $1,300 for the lease.
They're definitely gonna rehab the tank and sell it, or lease it.
Eventually, they'll lease it to somebody
That's
else.
what
They're not in the tank sales business. They will rehab it eventually and lease it to someone else.
There's a lot of value in that tank, I'll just say that.
What's the pressure, or what are we talking about? Is that a pressure vessel? Is it
It is a
ASME
pressure vessel.
code
It's
vessel?
175 PSI.
Is that what the pressure is it's in there on the oxygen? It's not,
No, it's not. That's not the pressure in there, but that's what it's rated as.
yeah, but what's the pressure inside it?
I do not know the pressure. It's very low pressure when it
Yeah,
comes
it's
out,
like-
so I'm assuming it's low pressure in there. But it is a vacuum tank at 175 PSI.
Does this make us, do they get the salvage value of the tank, or do we have the option to discuss that further?
We could probably discuss that with them further if we would like for them to remove the tank for, we could remove the tank and just lease the other one from them, and we could salvage that if you would prefer.
We've got plenty of land there, we've set it over to the side and, discuss that further. I mean, I think
Sure.
there's salvage value, I think there's considerable salvage value to the tank, and there might even be somebody locally interested in it.
I will say, and I asked for people the price of, including salvage value, the numbers I got, the 192, 220, and 232 number were including what they would give us for salvage value on our existing tank. So, I don't know exactly what the tank would cost to purchase without including that salvage value. All of these people say, well, can I come get your tank and then salvage that myself? So, you are correct in that.
I'm afraid if we leave the tank on the site, it's gonna be there a long time.
That would be somewhat my concern, yes, sir.
I think the tank's got some value. If it's already been calculated, then it is what it is. But
Into the purchase price, yes, sir. And the lease price, like I said, they indicated that they are giving us salvage value on that tank. As we know, salesmen sell, so.
So which one do you recommend?
I recommend leasing the tank because the 20-year payback window isn't quick enough right now, given all the needs we have to go forward with this personally. If the $75,000 quote was valid, then that probably makes a lot of sense, but considering he won't return any of my phone calls and I'm trying to buy something from him, I seem to think it's invalid.
Before we act on this, there's one thing about the piping at the Academy Creek. And I think, are we gonna be discussing that in a few minutes? Have we took bids on that?
We have not. We put the bids on hold because making this decision, because we were gonna have to, if we were gonna purchase a tank, we were going to need to.
So we're delaying the bid opening on the tank?
That's
on
correct.
that. Okay,
That's
so we need to go ahead and make a decision.
Yes, sir. That would be preferable.
Yeah, after looking at what these, second round of quotes on these tanks are gonna cost, I'm prepared to make a motion.
If the guy answers the phone, I'm gonna tell him he's charging too little for his tank if he
Yeah.
can get me one for $75,000. He
Yeah.
could get a little more profit on that.
Maybe he was just selling a tank
Maybe he was just selling,
and not the
not a
fittings.
pressurized, the fittings and everything else that goes with it.
Maybe somebody needs a bigger Christmas budget or something, but, I'm gonna make a motion, I make a motion that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission modify the existing Matheson liquid oxygen supply and storage vessel lease agreement to include a second storage vessel for a term of 84 months at the rates listed on the attached Exhibit A.
I'll say.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Motion is carried 7 yeas. Okay, this is the engineering RFP, Jimmy, are you gonna?
Yes, sir. Just very briefly, we've gone back and, as requested, withdrawn the original RFP for selection of engineering services on the 4003 improvements. The project in itself, we went back and redefined the project, narrowed the scope some to get more apples-to-apples comparison on what we were doing, and in the process, in regards to what the commission has given us in terms of direction, I wanted to make sure everyone was aware that we had made the accommodations to include price and local office considerations for the selection criteria. In addition, our selection team is going to be comprised of 3 on-staff engineers. So that's where we're at today. I've got a copy of the criteria we passed out to the, as part of the RFP, if the commission's interested in seeing what we're doing. Got any questions or concerns about that, we can talk about it, but if not, we're on our way. But we have covered that. We have included the additional concerns that were raised previous. Anybody else?
Yeah, if you got one.
Yeah, I brought,
You wanna pass them now?
yeah, might as well. Let me,
For reference.
Should we have something on this list that would look at the performance or the past performance of a vendor in respect to how they've worked with us?
That would somewhat be included in the recently completed projects portion of that. If they've done recent work with us, the review staff would take into account how they have performed for us in those recent projects.
Change orders, was there, did they finish on time? Have to ask for extension to the project, that sort of thing? So that would go under A, recently completed you don't have one of these, do you?
I don't have one of those, but yes.
oh, yes, sir, it's A. It's A.
This is the evaluation criteria, but also do we say it's gonna be qualifications based and also cost-based selection?
Well, they've got this, well, I mean, not that we call it out specifically as both, but they can read. And I assume they understand that because we're giving points for the fees, it is price-based to an extent.
Yeah, what I'm concerned is if we have just qualifications based on there, you familiar with what I'm talking about, Ms. Crosby, that we're gonna get into the same issue if two firms are, one's a little bit higher than the other ranked, but yet when the price is substantially less, and we go with that low price. So I thought we ought to say evaluation based on qualifications based and also price will be a factor. I know it's a factor in the rating, but it might not come out in the rating.
You mean just add a statement to the RFP that
Yeah,
indicates
it says
that?
qualifications based and also
We can issue an
something as it
addendum
relates
that
to.
references what Commissioner Trumpsey said, and we will.
Is there any reason we made it add up to 105 points instead of 100?
No, it's just, we, in discussions with Commissioner Trumpsey about what we discussed before, we were looking at what it was. We made the adjustments, and that's just what it shook at.
That was
guess
my
that's
math error. That was
Sorry?
my math error.
I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I
I
just,
think he did it just to make my OCD go nuts.
well, that's fine. My OCD too.
Yeah, you guys saw, I didn't see that.
We do have a couple of OCD people, so that will work.
Okay, on B, experience and qualifications. Statement of the firm's qualification to perform the work in years in business. Please include any specific statement as the firm's experience with design of a lift station repairs and any to include, and then you go through some stuff. And I want you to consider a statement of the firm's qualifications and any potential subcontractors that the firm may use.
They are
Add that.
required as part of the proposal to.
Say again?
submit- They're required as part of the proposal to submit all their subcontractors they're going to potentially use.
They have to have all this experience and qualifications with that? Because this doesn't say that
They
necessarily.
provide resumes for all their subcontractors as well, just like the actual firm.
Okay.
applicant.
So you're saying that this will cover what my concern is? Okay.
The, item E, 15 points. If I read that next to the last sentence, The point is to award the local scoring points to those that are close by and available without the need to charge large travel fees. I'd prefer not to award points on that. I'd like to see if we couldn't somehow, with an RFP, just tell all prospective bidders that, however they bid these projects, you know, that they need to include any travel for staff back and forth to and from Glynn County, and their rates, whatever their rates, you know. In other words, we're not going to allow people to have an itemized charge at any point in time, any place for travel. That if it has to be part of their overhead, they need to figure that in. That's the cost of doing business, whether they're 15 miles from Brunswick, 20 miles, or 150 miles.
So you want to drop the local as defined by 60 miles?
Yeah. I mean, if we're trying to favor a local contractor, I understand that some folks want to do that, but on the other hand, this is about the cost of staff coming.
How
back and
many
forth.
engineering firms fit the 60 miles?
I don't know.
Well, there's some good firm, the reason I bring, I mean, there's
That
some
would
good
include
firms.
That would include Jacksonville and Savannah, so there'd be a fair
Yeah.
number.
About
3?
four.
Was
is-
Jacksonville within 60 miles?
Yeah. No.
No, it's not. The airport-
Savannah isn't
The
it?
airport is,
But
but
not
Jacksonville
downtown.
proper is not.
There are parts of Savannah that aren't either, aren't there?
Most of Savannah is not.
Well, maybe it needs to be 80 miles, and Savannah's.
Well, it depends on where they are
We
too.
want to include Savannah and Jacksonville?
Yes.
Maybe it needs to be 100 miles.
Maybe 100, I mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess, I think the intent here, I think, is that if we put 60 miles in there, that they can't just have a little office here and then have the work performed by a different office. That, in my opinion, would be subbing. So this, whatever mileage, if we're gonna set mileage, needs to incorporate enough bidders so that we can get quality work.
Yeah, that's the point. Try quality work. And I like
Yeah.
Commissioner Browning's idea that we should look at
That's my
cost.
whole point.
Open it up.
That's my whole point. I want as many good contractors, I don't care if they're 1,000 miles from here, to be
Just for the
interested in
engineer.
coming. And something I witnessed over the years as customers that I used to work for learned, because we used to be able to go in and bid, and we'd have all kind of little charges for this, that, and that. They come in there and they said one day, hey, from now on, this is gonna be part of your overhead, this is part of your overhead. We don't wanna see all this separate stuff, okay?
A little
And
different.
okay? And so, I mean, that's a part of your, cost of your business. If you wanna live in Atlanta, or have office in Atlanta, but do work with us, you better get all your other numbers right.
Engineering is a little bit different than contract, and then one thing I'll point out there, I mean, if you're doing design, a lot of times they'll say, we're gonna make 4 trips. If part of our design package, we're gonna make 4 trips to the site for whatever reason. It's when we call them and say, we want you to make a 5th or a 6th, that's when there's reimbursables included, so so they're never gonna have an all-in rate that has
But-
every single thing.
But I can tell you, even doing it that way, if you tell them they gotta make 4 trips, so you're not gonna be looking for those broken out, they're gonna factor the cost of those trips into their other prices.
Absolutely.
And so
put
do
reimbursables for
all
those
of
4
them.
trips.
Do all
If
of
they
them,
have to make 5 and 6, then.
yeah. Whether they make, yeah, they can do all of them.
I like the idea of having some local weight personally.
Well, this is not that complicated.
Well, if you wanna put 5
Why would you-
points,
Yeah, 5, why would you put
Yeah.
15 points on it then?
We can make it 10 to make it add up to 100.
I mean,
Well, I think maybe you wanna just drop it?
yeah, I'd like to drop it.
I mean,
I think I
clean it up, drop
support
it.
what Mike wants to do. I think we need some wording in there that says travel in connection with this project must be absorbed by the engineering firm as part of their overhead.
I don't think it has nothing to do with travel whatsoever. This,
Well,
the evaluation, this evaluation criteria to
Evaluations
select,
give a local preference,
yes.
that's right.
okay? I thought from what,
I understand
Commissioner
what
Browning
Commissioner
was
Brown is
saying.
saying. I understand that on a price-wise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
but-
we don't want to see travel.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah,
But if you're looking to try to get more weight towards the local,
Well, that's not what this says here, though.
Stimulating the local economy.
That's not what this says.
What?
It's not about that.
okay,
Look at your-
well, I
next to the left.
understand. I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be that, though.
Yeah, we would be evaluating on proximity to Glynn County. And how that might impact charges for staff traveling back and forth.
Well, I think the staff, like I said, they travel back and forth, they should include that in their own, that's up to them.
We're never gonna include it in everything.
Right.
Just saying,
That's up
if
to
they
them,
do, they're
but-
gonna put a huge
but-
risk factor in there that we're gonna pay for.
But I do think we should give some kind of consideration to a local firm. I mean, just because they're here, they're working in our community. And monies generated here can move around here a lot more.
What would you like to see the local be defined as, what distance?
I don't think you can define it.
I don't know.
60
Now,
miles or-
well, it all depends. If we're trying to include Jacksonville and Savannah, if we're trying to consider that our local area, then quite naturally, we're gonna have to go out further. But if you're considering the local area just Brunswick and
Glynn County.
surrounding county, Glynn County, I guess, whatever like that, then that's what, 50 to 60 miles right there, I think. Now, where you get Waycross, you get Hinesville, Richmond Hill, Cadman County, Fulton. But now, it may not be that many people that we're looking for that to get that, but the other firms should be able to overcome that. That's why it should not be 15 points.
Yeah.
The other firms should be able to overcome that part since they're not local.
Well,
Is there
maybe
different-
3 points.
How much?
It don't need to be 15 points. I agree that's way too
That's a
much.
lot of
3
weight.
points.
3 points.
I don't care how much it is, but if that's what you're looking for, are you trying to help some of the local engineering firms that's here?
What percent did we use, Andrew?
5 points.
I think you had
5 points.
What now?
We used 5 in my previous position.
Okay.
3 to 5,
That's
I don't-
fine, that's fine. That's it, but I don't think it should be 15 because 15,
15 makes it pretty heavy.
it does. It means that's almost the same as the other part of here.
Mm-hmm.
Did we get enough in here that covers the cost? Comparing based on bids, based on cost, awarding based on cost?
Got fees at 20 points. It's 20% of the total.
Is that, is fees,
Wait a
is
minute,
that their
would it
rate
still be?
structure, their rate card,
bit
or
more
is
than-
that the total, is that the fee for the project?
Fee for the project.
And they can put that, the price in there,
That's a
as
lump
you
sum fee
say,
and a total fee.
in
Well, some of
overhead,
that
whatever,
we-
part of the overhead.
Hourly not to exceed,
So how you gonna evaluate those? You gonna have to put an hourly quantity for those?
we are suggesting, or we are requiring on the, construction services full-time, or 60% as full-time observation. So that somewhat, if someone tells us that they think this project's 120 days versus 180 days, that could make a big difference. But if they're the only one that says 120 days, they're just gaming the system at that point. So, kind of take, well, we have an idea of how long it should take and, make sure it falls in line with that.
I mean, 5 points for the local office is fine with me. I mean, if that's what y'all want.
Yeah, 5 points.
We'll make it 10, so it adds up to 100.
Well, we
They
can
can-
change something else and make
They
it,
can take what we didn't take and put it someplace else if they want it to be 100.
yeah.
Okay,
Experience.
I think we're through with that discussion item.
All right, sir.
Leadership Institute discussion?
Yes, sir. This is, I just want to brief the commission on the fact that in the last commission meeting, we talked about the new, or the recently completed strategic business plan. The big point that I wanted to make is that with the number of new initiatives that we laid out for the course of the coming calendar year, there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of differences in expectations for behavior. There's going to be a lot of issues that people got to get used to. And we all know that as humans, we resist change. It's just a fact. One of the things that was brought to my attention about the time we were completing this was Mr. Donaghy and Mr. Lance Turpin from BB&T brought to my attention that BB&T has a subsidiary, FAR Associates, that does something called the Leadership Institute. What is the Leadership Institute? Basically, what they do is come into organizations and look at what's going on. They evaluate the top management, they look at the middle management guys, and they look at the individual staff to find out where everybody's head is on change and working through change and being able to deal interpersonally and directly with those changes. We've been talking to Mr. Turpin and his associate, Mr. Michael Barnes, who is a FAR Associates representative. And they brought to our attention a program that seems to meet, after discussions of what we have as an organization and the changes that we're looking at doing, it seems to me that they've given us a pretty good proposal to come in and look at our organization and help us get through this over a 90-day period, making all the assessments, and then giving us a custom-cooked set of recommendations that will allow us to be more successful in terms of the changes we anticipate making. And there's a lot of change that's going to be involved in these initiatives. And I'll say that the initial discussions, since we had the discussion with you all, as you would expect, there's been a fair amount of resistance to having to do more, having to change the way you do things in some cases, but it's the typical resistance to change. And so we're anticipating this is going to be a really big help to us as we move forward and being successful in the new initiatives that we're proposing. So we're going to be moving ahead with at least the initial phase to evaluate where we are and what we might want to do. Just wanted to inform the commission on that.
Okay. That's within your training budget?
Yes, sir. Or within our technical services.
Okay.
This is going to be a consulting.
Any questions? Social media standards of practice?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. In your hands, you have what we're referring to as the social media standards of practice. And to clear up some confusion, the Section 7.3 and 7.4 that were also attached are already in play. That's excerpts from the human resources policy that I needed to reference within this presentation. So, meaning that those are already active. I'm not suggesting any change to that, reinforcing it really. So I hope that we can all agree that our customers are becoming more aware of our efforts to increase transparency and reduce what may be seen or viewed as a communications divide between them and us. So even these meetings tend to be poorly attended by the public because they're held during business hours when most of our customers are working. Not everyone can attend to contribute during the public comment period, and even those that can email may not choose to email you, yet they do have concerns, and they're valid concerns. In an effort to voice these concerns, many of our customers are now turning to social media using platforms that didn't exist 20 years ago. While that's a good thing and something that we encourage, the challenge that we now face is the methodology we use to engage our customers when they voice their concerns there. I'm personally no stranger to that challenge. 2 years ago, I was tasked with entering into this fairly new digital public square and working out a way to have the most impact. I've made missteps. I've added fuel to the fire in cases where perhaps I should have just stepped out of the room and let people make their peace. But my intent was pure. My goal has always been to do my best to respond directly to issues while also recognizing that every person that's communicating in a thread represents one warm body, but there may be as many as 10 or more lurkers that are viewing the communication and seeing that back and forth conversation and gaining valuable insight from that experience as well. So it's not just look what happened here. It's sometimes things develop beyond the screen. So as ill-equipped as I may have felt, and I may have been, to be able to tactfully steer these posts towards positive resolution, our staff members are now entering into this public square as well, anxious to defend us because they have skin in the game. Members of our staff have committed their careers to serving this community, and they want to defend our image. By the way, many of those same staff have formed opinions over time that the board and the management of the JWSC have made decisions that have caused damage to that image, but I believe that we are seeing efforts made now with this board to correct that course. And in fact, the strategic business plan that Mr. Burrows and Mr. Junkin outlined in the last meeting is very overwhelming evidence of that. We have big plans for 2019. We're going to be putting out very regular public education content about the plans within that strategic business plan, the initiatives, I should say. And that content's going to be an easy target in the community as well. The more we communicate, the more we're going to get feedback. I'm actually anxious to satisfy the board's desire to have a social media policy, but not at the risk of putting what would amount to be a muzzle on staff that see us as getting oftentimes unfairly criticized on social media and in the public, period. What I'd like to illustrate is that we have to demonstrate to the public that we hear their concerns and then hold our staff accountable for how they respond to those concerns, but not any more aggressively than if they had made contact with that customer or that citizen in person, by fax, by phone, or by email. Those methods already exist, and they have since we've been doing business. So this is just one small change, and we want to reinforce the policy. By background, the First Amendment rights protect free speech, but they don't prevent consequences of that speech where it violates our code of conduct. Section 7.3, which you have, Code of Conduct of the Human Resources Policy, presently provides guidelines on the behavior and performance expected from all staff. Section 7.4 goes on to outline the corrective actions that will be taken as a response to violations in Section 7.3. The existing policy is focused upon interactions between staff and customers in a broad sense, with contact generally being made in person or via phone call. This new social media policy then addresses in a specific and relevant sense how behavior exhibited by the employee while interacting with customers online in a social media realm is to have the same consequences as those that would apply had the interaction taken place by person or by phone. The standard of conduct would be applied to existing platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., and any new platforms, including those that don't even exist yet, in the same way that the standard automatically applied to email as a new medium when its widespread usage originally took hold around 20 years ago. In fact, if you think back in that same period of time, this organizations that you're a part of, had transitioned from a memo format where almost every single contact was in the form of paper, initialed, sent to somebody, copy, carbon copy, blind carbon copy, what have you, transitioned into email. And now the memo, inter-office-wise, is very rare. So there are certain changes in the workforce that we are following, tracking, and trying to keep up with. So understanding that using abusive, offensive, or malicious statements via email or text can result in disciplinary action, which we've seen here, the same standard will now apply to documented negative feedback via social media, and the existing corrective action procedure will be followed. All staff will receive a copy of the social media standards of practice along with tips on what is considered appropriate and inappropriate communication when acting as or being perceived as acting as agents of the organization. I won't read through that document itself. I certainly would ask you to, but keep in mind that all employees, all management, even yourselves, are considered agents of the organization. So when we're communicating with a customer, the standard applies. Acceptance would be documented with signature by each staff, and a copy of this acceptance would be filed in their personnel file. All new hires will receive a briefing on this SOP as part of the comprehensive onboarding procedure that we're actively developing. And so in summary, we want to encourage staff to be willing to monitor social media for situations that warrant a strategic response to concerns. And while we can't prevent them from responding to concerns that may deserve immediate attention, we want them to feel confident that they can contact me, the PIO, the assistant PIO, Joey Nesbitt, that operates primarily in the call center. And if a response needs to be sent, coordinated and prepared by staff, by management, if we need to confirm some facts before we respond, then we want to do that. Personally, I don't know all things about all the project update that we're about to get. I don't know all things about what's going on in the community. And I, outside of operations staff, feel that I have a responsibility to keep up with that. So we're going to be working harder and faster. In fact, I had the honor this morning of spending time with the systems pumping and maintenance staff on Prince Street. Film, video, got a lot of content, photography, wanted to show that staff some love, but also want to follow up with any concerns the community sees regarding work that they believe we're not communicating well on with photo essays. Instead of giving a long block of text every time we want to inform somebody on the timing, the schedule for paving in Sea Palms on Harrogate, rather than spending the time to dedicate 4 hours of staff time to formulate some type of grand response, oftentimes putting a picture with a simple comment at the bottom that the paving has started today is going to resolve those questions and concerns. Ultimately, we need to be aware that all consequences of any staff engagement with citizens and customers provides them with the same protective methodology that is already enforced through the terms of the JWSC Human Resources Policy as adopted and accepted. So if you're going to become a de facto agent of the JWSC when you have communication with the customer, whether you're in the field or in the office, via email, via social media, via text, phone, carrier pigeon, whatever the case is, there would be consequences for the engagement, especially if the customer or even the lurkers perceive the communication to be coercive, abusive, manipulative, or otherwise unprofessional.
Jay, let me ask you about some things that are printed here.
Yes, sir.
First off, just for clarification for me,
Yes, sir.
under using personal social media while at work, it says we allow employees to access their personal accounts at work. Is that certain employees or all employees?
All employees, by default, have access to, you can't more or less put a gag order or, it's hard to prevent somebody from doing something on their personal phone, even on their work phone.
Well,
we can have measures there.
So is this all forms of social media? So they can go on Facebook?
Yes, sir, presently. Staff can
They
access.
allow that?
Certainly, certainly, by default.
That's not putting a gag order on employees when they're on our dime to go on their personal Facebook account.
Realistically, you have no. It would take you longer to manage by walking around and prevent that than it would be worth.
Pardon me, I am not talking about going around and looking over people's shoulders, but I'm talking about a policy that I think you pretty much left it wide open.
Yeah, it seems like the policy might say, unless work-related.
Right. Oh, well,
employees
to be
may
clear,
not access.
to be clear and
social
clarify,
media.
this is not policy. The policy is already in place. Back up.
Well, it may be, but hold on a minute here. Background, the first page.
Right.
Starts out, First Amendment rights protect free speech, but don't prevent consequences of that free speech where it violates our code of conduct.
Correct.
I agree with you there, but First Amendment rights, I don't believe, give employees absolute right when they're working for someone to be social media.
We're not granting that right. This is not.
That's correct. Yes.
It does not do
Now,
that. Well, we have sent a message here
Right.
that this is people's First Amendment right when they walk in the doors down here and they're on our clock to be on social media. And while we're at it, I have got calls from folks that are friends with other friends on Facebook that know of people that work here that are on Facebook all day long. And if they're on Facebook, they are either not doing what they're getting paid to do, or they're not needed at JWSC because we're paying them too much for being on Facebook.
I agree.
And you don't start to defend it, because I'll show them to you.
No, sir. I'll actually.
I'll show you the folks, and there is nothing about JWSC in their Facebook postings. Nothing. nothing whatsoever in these Facebook
Perhaps.
postings.
I don't want to detract, and I certainly don't want to minimize your statement, but bear in mind that those that are monitoring Facebook during office hours, I'll say this. I have 10 staff members in customer service that I would love and encourage and ask them to monitor because
pardon
things
me.
happen that we don't
Jay.
hear about until we see them.
I disagree with
We
you,
need
Jay.
some work done on this.
Right.
And
I don't like that
we
either.
need to lay out some conduct, rules, accountability, and it's got to be about JWSC when people engage, if they on Facebook. And I've seen some of yours, and you addressed customers' complaints and all.
Yes, sir.
I'm not talking about that.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. But
I'll say
I cannot
if-
explain to people that feel like they're paying bills that are too high.
Right.
I cannot explain to them when they say, well, you got people on Facebook. They should be working. They should be doing something.
This doesn't seek to address that. This is not the stick to keep people from getting on Facebook.
But there actually is language in here.
But this here
There is.
is social media standards of practice is what we're talking about.
Yes, sir. Have you read this document? You
Yeah.
probably, okay.
But-
No, sir, Mr. Junkin's right. There's actually on page 2.
Yeah, Commissioner Browning, it says, we advise employees to use common sense. And if you read through that, it says, if we neglect our job duties, spend times on social media, their decline in productivity and safety shall show on their performance reviews. Social media use on personal accounts should be limited to lunch and other designated breaks unless otherwise directed by management. So that spells
Well, he
it out.
already said he's all day long, though.
I know, but this is,
I
this
don't
does not
expect
give
us to
them
go
a
around policing
ticket to
everybody. I
do
mean,
that.
email, people gonna get on email, they're gonna check,
This
I
doesn't say
understand
you
that,
can
but
do that.
I'm
Right.
telling you, some of the social media,
I'd like to dial that back and say
we need a very
the HR policy already prevents that.
straightforward.
Well,
Actually,
Jay, you know,
this-
it may prevent it, but it has no means to enforce it.
Right.
Unless you have, every once in a while, periodically, you go around and you have a means to check out people's social
Right.
media.
And this
check out
is
your
not meant to
computer.
address that. This social media policy was meant to address what's the consequence of those that engage
Well, you
with
can put
customers.
something in there that says that
Right.
the company, this is company time. And it can't be subject to monitoring, and it should be.
Yes, sir, but that's in the HR policy. This is specifically, this is a specific document related to.
Well, I didn't see it in the HR policy either.
I don't have that section.
But
Okay.
it
Maybe we do
just-
one at a time.
It just without question says that anybody and everybody working JWSC can be on social media.
That's what it doesn't
anytime.
say- it doesn't-
does.
You're right. You're right. Well, I tell you, when I worked on Jekyll Island, HR, we actually terminated 3 or 4 people for being on social media
All day long.
all day.
Yeah.
As you can.
A lot of organizations
They make their own decision.
That's what it says.
will
Yeah.
take and, I mean, now, personal phones is a whole different issue, but a lot of organizations will take the computers and say, we're blocking YouTube, we're blocking Facebook, we're blocking those type of sites, streaming videos, stuff like that.
True.
In order to keep people from
keep
going
them off
on
of
the
it.
internet.
Yeah,
and
but
keep them off of it.
also organizations can say that being this computer belongs to is the property of JWSC, and we have the right to monitor that.
Yeah. They monitor it and they block it where you just can't
Can.
go.
Well, I'm saying yes, you
I'm
can.
thinking, I'm speculating, I don't know for sure, but I think most of what you may be talking about is more the folks that have got their personal iPhones and are sitting there camped out somewhere if they can find a place to keep out of trouble. But you're right, the wording in that first sentence under the using personal social media while at work, it's implied by the way I worded it, and I'll take the heat on this. I put this wording in initially, but I thought the follow-up expressions for, there's an issue, there's a consequence if you're doing this on our time. You're only allowed to use your personal social media, whether it's about us or about your, where you went fishing this weekend. Spells it out. Your lunch break,
Well-
your other breaks.
I
I
think
know,
you're contradicting.
It doesn't say that. We
I
can
think
go back and
everything
tweak
here
that.
kind of.
I think it's valuable to say,
argue, but
this isn't
I can
about
argue.
access. This is about consequences if you engage. This document, trust me, we could discuss this from an IT perspective. What is the value in blocking access to social media? But that's not this.
Well, this is a discussion. I mean, I think discussion
Right.
is wherever it leads. And
Right, and we've done that, and I'll tell you the consequence of that. Let's be real. I'm no longer the youngest guy in the room when it comes to social media conversation. And it's going to happen whether you want it to or not.
Well, then we can
employees
work
are,
it in.
employees are going to use their personal phones to engage in social media conversation back and forth. It doesn't matter who. Specifically, we're speaking about communication with customers. But let's be real. You can't block it. So we're not talking about the IT side of things, and Mr. Junkin is correct. The wording of this, it doesn't imply, it says it right there, the responsibility is to ensure that productivity is not affected.
So
this
Jay,
isn't-
so should we condone it? That's basically what you that's what you're
we
saying.
condone it. We
We condone them to go ahead and use social media.
Can I
See, that's
add
the
one?
problem.
not
That's the problem.
necessarily.
The wording, I could defend any employee probably that you pull in here and say,
However-
we got I could defend them with this right here.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm just gonna, and this is definitely not a legal opinion, this is a public comment portion of the meeting. But I've spoken on social media in the employment laws before. There are countless studies out there, one that was funded by Coca-Cola Enterprises that relates to employee morale when you have a company that prohibits social media and only tolerates it. And of course, the ones that prohibit social media have lower employee morale, but and lower productivity. I'm not promoting those
Charlie.
studies. I'm just saying they're
Charlie, really what I'd like to see a product that we can say that we know the employees, if they read it, know that they're not supposed to be doing it, and if they get caught, they could be reprimanded.
I'd like
That's it.
I'd like
That's
to
it.
bring that back
and
with
it
one
doesn't have
fact.
these caveats in it.
Here's one fact.
I'm saying it's got caveats in it that I think need to come out of it.
Well,
And you know, if you catch them, I'm on the county over there. I know we probably got the employees on there too and all, but not with, we don't have policy with caveats like this in it. You know,
Well,
we just need to have a strong hand if we have somebody that gets out of line. I don't know that we do. I'm just saying, this right here, I think I'd have a hard time backing staff if they wanted to get on to somebody, reprimand somebody for being on social media, because we pretty much condone it. Right up
But
front.
this is for your own personal
Yeah.
device that you bring into the workplace.
No, sir.
You know, strengthen
This
your
is
tool
for
if you have to
using
use it.
our
Time you
computers.
access,
This is for using our computers.
I'd like to add one fact, and I know I need to step out of this because this is going off on a direction that was not intended. This is a product that solved a problem that has now grown into a different problem. Am I correct? The discussion was, what are the consequences? This was the challenge. What are the consequences of staff engaging customers on social media? That was the original intent, was to answer that question. What happens if if staff engage customers? That was the original question.
You kind of looked at me, and I know I'm one of the
Right, yeah,
originally.
that's where it came
My
from.
original intent was that we have a all-encompassing policy that addresses social media.
Right.
I personally don't think people should be sitting at a computer while they're paying bills and saying, I want to see what Fred's doing on Facebook
Right.
on the company's computer. Now, you're never going to stop them on the personal phones. We cannot condone it, but I don't
Right.
think that, the hospital, for example, we have Facebook block. You cannot go on Facebook while you're at work. You clock in, you can't go on it. And that's not just us. Most organizations are like that. Now, it eats up bandwidth. It eats up we have HIPAA stuff, et cetera, but it eats up a lot of bandwidth. There's a lot of
Productivity.
issues. You try to go to Facebook, it just says denied. You can't go here. You try to go to YouTube, denied. Can't go here. You try to, now you can, if you're have a reason to be. I can pick up the phone and call IS and say, look, I got something I need to research. Will you release this for me for a 3-day period? They'll release it for me, or they may not. They may say you don't have a business reason to.
Well, I for whatever reason can't pull it up here, but this is what I wanted to say. If you get past your personal perception, of course, I would say by show of hands, who is an active participant in social media? We actually have customers that are now engaging us on a daily basis using a chat feature that's a product of Facebook.
Why?
Because it's zero cost and it's very effective. Right now, Joey is having conversations with 3 different customers. Questions of why were they disconnected, what is the balance in the account, how do they pay online. It's a powerful tool. Now, is it possible for us to block that system-wide and only open up that
I have a
for
question.
certain people? Yes, sir, it could be possible.
A lot of what we have to do in our business is document interactions with customers.
Yes, sir.
Is that interaction documented?
It is documented. In fact, every communication that we have, whether that's in text, telephone, social media, fax, email, is discoverable.
So I'm
It
gonna
is
ask you another question.
Agora.
So does that mean that everyone who's on social media on our computers, we know exactly how long they've been on there? We can track that. Now, we don't want to know who they was on there with, maybe, but we know how long they was on it.
I think we're making social media the devil, but you forget
That's
that
not
people
making
like.
the devil.
Oh, I know, but let me clarify. Then you say, well, how many of our staff look at CNN.com or FoxNews.com or the BrunswickNews.com? Before long, you start to just try to play whack-a-mole with all of these different sites that people are using to get information. But this is a powerful tool to engage our customers. Please
Mark
don't make it.
Zuckerberg can tell you that.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me?
Mark Zuckerberg can tell you that.
Right, certainly.
Well, as a matter of fact, the reason why I say that, because if it's our computers, we should be able to see how long if you do audit every once in a while, you can tell just how long a person been on. We had one guy who was on it just about all day, and his answer was that he come in the morning, he turn it on, he open up social media, and he just sit there, and then he goes off and do something else, but it's sitting there. That was his defense, but it didn't work.
Let's correct one perception, though. Okay, just go ahead and eliminate from your mind that we have any staff members that sit in front of social media and are not productive. Please just accept, trust me, we manage our staff. So we have staff that are productive. If somebody is riding in the back of a crew truck and they're on their personal phone or even their work cell phone, and they're accessing Facebook while they're en route between jobs, do you want to increase that morale and give that person the chance to deflate, or do you want to say, I'm sorry, that's just not something you can do on our company equipment? It's somebody in customer service, it's between customers. Do you want to tell them they can't access CNN.com to look at the news? Because that's what you're saying, is that then if they're not just looking at our website between customers, then everything that they do is out of bounds.
Commissioner Brown?
My biggest problem is the Facebook interaction that folks are having, because I've got calls. The public's not seeing an employee that might be emailing. That's social media. They're not seeing that. But it's very visible to those customers that are friends of friends of friends, of employees down here that are getting on Facebook, and they're just Facebooking about whatever they want to. It has nothing to do with. That has come up.
We can address that, but this document was never intended to address that.
Well, it should.
You put it out here, though, Jay.
That's the HR policy. The HR. Okay.
Well,
Back it up. The HR policy already addresses that.
it doesn't say.
I agree.
No.
It's not in here. The HR
It's a
policy already
social
does.
policy, but I also think that Facebook
Facebook is the big one.
needs to be limited to those that just need it
Yeah.
to do their job.
Yeah.
And if you have people that are in your situation
Right.
that are using the chat feature, as long as that's all documented, we have access to it all, because that's what's key, then maybe that can continue, but you need to look at it. But I think in general, that people should not be on our computers, that's not their personal devices, on Facebook during duty time. If they're on break, then they can use their own personal device to be on Facebook. And I think Facebook, I don't know if there's any other similar social media, I guess LinkedIn is the same.
You can't list them. As soon as you list them, you have a new one that's not on the list.
I don't know. You just have
Difficult
to
to do.
define it.
Right.
But I think,
Reddit. You name it.
checking your email sometimes, seeing what's going on CNN sometimes may be okay, but just the interaction on Facebook, I think, is,
This is not where people are losing their productivity. Trust me. This is not where
I
they're losing
understand
Well,
that.
it
But I
appears, it
also
doesn't matter. It just,
understand
we think that it is.
That people.
Does that
go
make
out-
it fact?
The
I can monitor
It doesn't
that.
matter.
I can block
problem
it.
is if you have employee John Smith, who sends a Facebook post that goes to everybody, and somebody's a JWSC customer that knows who John Smith is, then all of a sudden, they're questioning whether we are, in fact, earning our keep by the rates we charge. Because John Smith is on social media all the time. And you have to think at it, I understand what you're what you're thinking.
Good
Jeff.
luck is my
But you
thing.
have to walk around on the other side of it and
Right.
look at it from a customer standpoint.
That's, once again, that's not, okay, you may get calls, you may get emails, you may get word from a customer that that's a concern, but honestly, if I asked 100 customers their top 10 concerns, that wouldn't be on the list.
Well,
We
I don't
have
know,
bigger
but-
things to be concerned with than whether a staff member is on the John
But
using
Jay-
Facebook, because they are.
But Jay, your other customers ain't these 7 commissioners up here that says, some of us saying we got a problem with it. If the other customers don't have a problem with it, that's not my problem. My problem is when it's a problem for me. And it's a problem for me when folks are on Facebook and they're not talking anything about JWSC at all. In fact, they're getting out of JWSC in their little brain because they've escaped JWSC through Facebook and they're out there just doing their whatever with their
Okay.
Facebook friends.
I agree with the chair and the vice chair, but I want to add one other thing to that. I appreciate what you said earlier, and I do think Facebook is a tool that we should have access, that we should use. I think Facebook is a valuable tool, and I think as public information officer, we should at times respond to comments. I think there needs to be some way to limit that to things that come to our actual account. I mean, if we have an actual account and somebody goes on there and says something that needs addressing, I think as public information officer, you could, and address it on our account. But just because somebody, the mayor tags Commissioner Adams and says, something about, joint water sewer, I don't think we should seek that out, or if it comes across us, we should automatically apply to it, jump in, and I don't think our team members should be doing so either. I mean, I've never seen anything just grossly inappropriate in the last 6 months or so, but I do think at times, wow, why do we, why is our team even being defensive of that? Just let it go. It's not, they didn't address it at us, they addressed it amongst each other. We happen to see it, and now we're commenting on it. So I do think we need to strengthen the policy. I think we need to, get all on the same page. And I agree with Mike's comment. You're right. There's people in the public that might not like it or whatever. But ultimately, this group in this room here, I mean, including the staff and the commission leadership, needs to come to the table on. And ultimately, it's our ball of wax, and we need to get on the same page, and we need to put this to rest. But I appreciate a policy coming forward for, and it's a discussion item, not a voting item today. I'm glad we were able to discuss it, and I think we need to get on the same page and put something into place, because I do think it's prevention. I haven't seen anything that's, just a gross error, but we need to make sure that we don't allow people to make a gross error that negatively affects us.
One quick comment before we close up on this. To Jay's point, it was intended to write a document more geared towards the type of behavior and the fact that we don't want individuals that work in the joint water and sewer representing us mistakenly or accidentally and making comments that may be unintended to be offensive but are. So our intent was to hold down the tone and the type of comments and content that was put out there by anybody that represents them during the day or at home at night or whenever, if they're an employee of ours. Now, to Commissioner Browning's point, yes, that first sentence there under using social media while at work does imply we're giving you a ticket to go for it. We'll make changes to that. But down below it, it strictly tells them, this ain't the cool thing to do, and you will be disciplined.
Yeah, and that's an important point.
And I saw that, but let me tell you what, employees know how to look out for employees, and they read that thing, and I just thought,
I hear you.
And that's what my big issue is. Let's get the policy cleaned up, and,
We'll make changes
Okay.
to that.
Unless there's further discussion by a commissioner, we'll move on to the next topic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
This is our capital projects report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is the monthly capital project update. It is a living document. There's actually been a few changes to it that you don't see on your copies you have. They were distributed early with the agenda package, but I'll cover those things and hit just a couple high points. If there's any projects in particular I don't catch, by all means, please ask questions. Happy to do my best to answer those questions. some of the agenda items even today address some of these projects. 702 North Mainland sewer improvements, Phase 1. Final check has been paid out. Just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Final payment's been made. Along with 702, sir.
When was that made?
It got
This
out
week,
Wednesday.
yesterday.
Yeah, I think it went out Wednesday.
Are we talking about the phase one?
Phase 1 check.
Yesterday afternoon.
So the change order's been signed?
The change order that was passed in here was what we paid them.
So have you made final payment?
That was final payment, and that's the way we worded it in the transmittal.
They submitted a pay app, we paid that in the amount that was approved, and then sent a letter that this was the final payment.
I thought at one time we were going to consider liquidated damages on that before we made final payment.
Yeah, I seem to recall the discussion that we would consider a recommendation for liquidated damages, and then when they made the final request, depending on that recommendation, those monies could have been
You would reduce
credited
the-
against that amount before payment was made. We were gonna have that opportunity.
Were there any liquidated damages?
Yeah, I thought we had heard from staff and the attorney that there was no liquidated damages to be considered. I mean,
I know the comment I made in the one, in the last discussion that, about getting into, they have arguments contrary to our
Yeah.
perceptions.
Okay.
All right. Project, along with Project 702, there's Phase 2 and Phase 3. We talked about CCTV work, of course, with that being awarded to Southeast Pipe. We're going to move on with that. You'll see the RFP for engineering for Phase 2 and 3 coming up shortly behind that.
Let me ask you about both of those.
Yes, sir.
Can somebody tell us what is the additional capacity that we have from Phase 1? And then what additional capacity we're gonna have from Phase 2, and what additional capacity we're gonna have from Phase 3? Can y'all provide us those numbers?
We can, certainly.
When can we get those?
I think Mr. Junks probably got that in your update.
We had a brief discussion, and approximately the Phase 2 in conjunction with Phase 3 at 4110 should add approximately 1,000 gallons was the estimate we have on the additional capacity we'll produce by implementing the last two phases. And we believe that we've added approximately 500 gallons through the end of Phase 1. At, let's say, and it's different depending on.
So we'll have roughly 2 million gallons of additional capacity from Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 then. 1,500 gallons a minute, which is a little over 2 million gallons.
I'll trust your math on that one, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to trust it too.
Well, I guess if you could bring at the next capital project report an update as to what we started off with and what it is as of that date, and then what the projected amount will be when we complete the project.
Because isn't Phase 2 and Phase 3 gonna do away with some of what was done in Phase 1?
It will reroute the flows from 4110 away from some of the improvements that were made in Phase 1. The work that was done at the station at 4110 will still be utilized.
Yeah, it's routed away, and that was planned.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, what we were trying to do in Phase 1 was do a rapid increase so that we could do some other things. And I believe the Phase 1 is what caused us to be able to say that EDA is now can be considered grad qualified. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I think
Well,
we need
they
something.
They meet the criteria.
The criteria, yeah. I don't know that they've completed their paperwork.
Yeah.
Well, I think we just need to have some kind of follow-up presentation with some documentation that tells us what's gonna happen to phase one after phase two and phase three is finished. What's it gonna serve, so we have an idea of what areas we're serving and the capacity we gain from this. Because this is a pretty expensive project.
Certainly, we've probably got a lot of that info already from our workshop. Yeah, certainly, we can provide that, absolutely. Project 703 is Pump Station 4003 decommissioned gravity sewer. We just talked about the criteria for scoring that project today. That's Pump Station 4003 off Newcastle Street. Project 805, L Street Water Improvements. That's a City of Brunswick project that we're cooperating with the city on to relay a section of 12-inch water line down L Street. We just had a pre-bid meeting on Wednesday, sponsored by the City of Brunswick at Old City Hall. City had two interested parties show up for that. Look forward to seeing how that works out. Expect, I think it's mid-February likely before work would begin on that project. So, it was brought up in that project about comparing to other projects in the past and whatnot, and liquidated damages and things. And to quote one of my colleagues in Glynn County Public Works, he recently made a statement on a project. If you're not there every day working diligently, don't expect any grace. So I think you can reverse engineer that back to if you're there working diligently on a project, I think consideration would be made, and that surely translates to our projects as well. Anyway, moving along, you won't see on there yet, this is part of the changes that have happened since this was dispersed. Project 901 is the Pump Station 3114 project on the south end. Also added is 904, Pump Station 4021 that was recently approved there at the Sonic pump station. And then we're gonna, with the MOU being approved today, with that adjustment or the cap of the money in there, there'll be project 905 on the next report you see, and that'll be actually our portion of the Glynn County Village storm improvements. You'll see that one populate on the project. Right now, all those projects are shown in the bullpen still. They'll move up officially into the capital project list with an actual number now. They've been numbered and funded. That is about really the high points on the stuff that we have in motion right now.
Can we talk about maybe getting a proposal ready for the Academy Creek improvements to get it prepared?
Yes, sir.
Even though the GFA loan's not been funded yet, we know it's gonna be funded probably. And get the RFP going, so we're not waiting another 6 months before we got an engineer on board.
Sure. Absolutely.
And then when are we gonna be addressing the St. Simon's follow-up on the II study?
It's in the queue after the PLOS phase 2 and 3 engineering goes out. That'll be the next one that goes out. Try not to put everything out at one time and oversaturate the market.
Well, the Academy Creek's gonna be a different contract
Right, yeah.
anyway, so we need to get that on out, so that needs to be a long lead time, and we don't want, I think the commission needs to see what we're talking about as far as the improvements before we send it out, what the scope of work is gonna be.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
We'll go to
Todd, that, about halfway down Parkwood, on the north side of Parkwood between, 17 and I guess Kimball or in that area there, there's a pump station there that's had a generator sitting there for a long time. What is that?
Pump station 4017, I think that's the number. Station had some pump problems. We ordered new pumps. They're not being oversized. It was just had to replace the pump, so that's there for a bypass connection.
It's not a pump though, it's just a generator.
Okay.
I mean, it's got wires going to it, not hoses. That's the only reason I say that.
I know they had to order new panels too, so I haven't been out there recently, so maybe they got the generator out there because they're replacing panels or something like that.
I just pass it every day and I've seen it for a long time. I was just curious.
I know that we had replaced the pumps out there because just worn out.
Do any of these projects address the additional funds in SPOS 5 that we did not talk about earlier? I see Alder Circle.
Right.
Alder Circle and Holly Street, 501 and 602. Those are the other two. Now, the funding in here is not the SPOS funding,
That's what we put into it,
that's what we put into it.
So Holly Street,
Alder Circle and Holly Street.
what's the status of that?
Yeah, Holly Street's about 450, I wanna say. Well, yeah, 450, and then,
That's not SPOS funding, that's what.
That's SPOS 5 funds, right?
Yes, sir.
what's the balance? I have to see what the balance at Splost is in there. I know the,
I
Alder
want to take it,
Circle.
when I was looking at, just here in the last week,
Yeah.
my recollection is it was around 540
Okay.
for Holly Street. And it was like 125 or 140 for the Alder Circle work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, don't we need to clean up all the SPOS 5 funds?
Well, John, isn't the 450 the money that's earmarked from SPOS for the project on Holly Street?
Those money should be where our costs are at.
Since we don't have control over those funds, they're not reflected.
No, okay, I thought that we used to have on here where, we don't have an X next to it, so I,
Right, because those SPOS funds, those aren't in our
no,
accounts.
we have it listed as R&R reserve
Right.
on both of them, okay.
We did have them at one time listed as project budget at other costs, but then the decision was made to
Okay,
SPOS.
so we took that off.
Counted.
All right, no, you've got it marked, it's in R&R reserve, or out of R&R reserve. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Well, I see over here it says engineering design complete. Have requested Glynn County to advertise for construction SPOS 5 funded. That's on Holly Street, I think.
Right, on Holly Street, yes, sir. And it's, yeah, we went through engineer design. I'll check again, but it's supposed to be being put together at the county for bid. They have to put it out.
Well, are we gonna give them our money?
No,
What's their money?
Sir,
the,
It's the county's money.
they've got a lot of projects going on, and we've just, the way I understand it, we've been biding our time waiting on us to become the next one in the queue. The better thing to happen would be for the project funds to be turned over to us so we could facilitate the bid and the construction management.
I don't have a problem with that, if we just go ahead and get that operating agreement put together.
Intergovernmental agreement.
Okay.
all right.
Would that be Alder Circle too?
Yes, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Executive Director?
Mr. Chairman, I just got a few items here, a couple of housekeeping reminders. I'd sent out a request to the chairman and the senior staff of requesting anybody that wants a seat at the table for the Chamber of Commerce's annual Grits and Issues breakfast. We'll have Buddy Carter and our local delegation to Atlanta providing the commentary. It'll be Jeff Jones, Don Hogan, and William Ligon. It's a pretty good overview of what's going on our behalf in Washington, and pretty good, very good overview of what's going on our behalf in Atlanta. That is on December the 14th at 8:30 a.m. at Epworth by the Sea. So if you haven't already, let me know you are interested. Please, okay, let me know, and we'll make sure there's a seat. Pardon?
I got those numbers now.
Oh,
The,
Commissioner Turpsey.
The Alder Circle, allocation from SPOS 5 is 178,000. The Holly Street is 561,000 remaining. That's what was allocated and what is remaining.
What's remaining? That's what's available, what I sent you.
Yes,
sir. Other issues, we've got a workman's comp insurance renewal coming up January 1. We've looked at it with Jarrett Brantley, and he brought to us the quotation from our current workman's comp provider, and we directed him to go back and get additional quotes. We will be coming back on December the 30th for a decision on workman's comp. We'll bring a recommendation, but it's, renewal has to be by January 1, so we'll need to make a decision and do an approval vote on it.
So we're gonna do it on December 20th?
Yes, sir. That's the next meeting.
Yeah. Can
And we
get
don't have
some
one
in-
between then and January 1.
I mean, is this a pretty easy thing to do?
As far as I can see, there's nothing that, other than you guys voting on it, to allow us to execute insurance based on the quotes we get. Covers the way we have been.
Is this all the insurance that we have, everything?
That's workman's comp.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't say
Do
that.
we anticipate any swings,
No,
same as last year?
did we, Jared?
We had a claim.
Yeah, we're gonna see.
So we don't even know what the bids are. don't
No,
have
we
to-
hadn't seen them yet. Haven't seen
What
them.
I understand, there's not gonna be many bids.
Might strike that from the record.
Other quick housekeeping, and I put out a notice this week about, there's going to be a forum at Coastal College on January 22nd. I'll just remind everybody that as well. It's a public meeting, as Commissioner Stevens had reminded me to make sure we got the word out. It's going to be on sea level rise predictions. It's from 8:30 to 11 at Coastal College, and I can give you more details if you're interested, but basically just looking at what the long-term planning is going to be for the community and which different speakers on the panel are going to be talking about how they perceive it. And I'll be one of those on the panel, and I've, be willing to share with you, any of you, the comments I've already kind of put together for it. Another reminder from the previous meeting, after the long repair we took on the gravity line for 2032, we're still doing the evaluation to determine which of the duct lines that are adjoining that are in serious need of repair before we get into another long and expensive repair. And I don't think they're going to be as kind to us as they were the first time as a result of. So we're going to try to be proactive and figure out which ones are in urgent need and go ahead and address them before they collapse and fail on their own. There's been a lot of interest on the Harrogate work over on the island. They commenced paving yesterday.
They redid some grading yesterday. They're supposed to start laying asphalt today.
Okay, today is the day. Last item, we've met this week with the mayor and his staff to look at the CDBG disaster relief grants that are becoming available. 3 zip codes are primarily going to be, as I'm told, I think approximately 80% of the $65 million is going to be going to 3 zip codes. Ours is one of them. We're working with the mayor and his staff to coordinate on the projects and make sure that what they're doing, if there's infrastructure needs related to that, we're tied to it. Fortuitously, Travis Stegall brought a gentleman from the Coastal Regional Commission that has access to EDA disaster relief funds or grants, indicating that there might be some opportunities for infrastructure grants that we can apply for. So we're going to go after those as well and try to get what we can from them. We think there's a lot of good opportunities, and we'll be coordinating with folks at the county. I've reached out to a couple of folks over there, and hopefully they'll return our calls and get in with us on what the big picture of all our needs are here in our area. And that's my wrap-up.
About the audit report.
The what?
Audit report. When are we gonna get that?
Audit
The
is the
20th
20th.
of,
We got the audit back in. We were arranging for the gentleman who presents the audit to come today. He had a schedule conflict, so we moved to the 20th.
Then go ahead and distribute it.
He's supposed to distribute the audit and the management letter to you shortly.
I'll put that out in the email to you, Monday.
Anything notable from your side?
We only had one audit finding this year, and that was separation of duties,
Which is ongoing.
which is
Yeah.
probably something that will always.
Always
be.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always have that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Can somebody explain what this is on our table? Andrew, you want to tell us about this?
Those are the, copies of the report that Mark Riles mentioned at the last meeting, for the, UNOX.
Oh, I did
Presentation
not
that
know
was
she had
made?
given those out, yes.
Those are from the seminar.
From, Mr. Dan Gay,
Daniel.
from Gay and Associates out of, Atlanta, are come down and gave some training to our operators at Academy, or not just at Academy Creek, all of our operators on proper operation of a UNOX basin, which is what we run at Academy Creek, very good training. And so we wanted to provide those to you to show you what we were looking at. There's some very good points in there. There's some things that it says that he suggests we do that we have not been doing, or according to Mark, who has been here over 20 years, that he has never seen us do. Even though it was installed to be done that way, we've never done it that way. So we are going to try to implement some of the changes he suggested. He did say that we may not have been operating it the way it most likely needed to be operated, but we had backed our way into a pretty good way of operating it. So it wasn't necessarily any of the current staff's decision to make those changes. They have just been instructed on how to do it over their tenure here, and they have managed to wrangle it into a pretty decent operation they got going down there. So we're looking at other ways to do it now that I think the staff's on board with making those changes, but it's just he was surprised when he was talking to me that we were doing pretty good considering the way we were trying to control that plant.
Did you have him go look at the oxygen piping that we're planning on replacing and get his
He did.
input on that?
He was not overly concerned with the majority of the oxygen piping when we looked at it. You know, I told him that if we were, any section of the pipe, we were gonna start at the end down by the headworks where all the H2S was at, because that has more corrosion. He agreed that the biggest issue with any of the piping is at the manifold, where all those valves and stuff are very severely corroded, and we are gonna address that as part of the project. But he was, he said that he was pleased to hear that we were addressing that, because he had severe concerns about the lack of safety equipment and the state of the manifold systems that we have.
Is the bid process such that we'll get a bid broken out so we can award it just for that portion?
What we're gonna do, the oxygen supply folks are gonna provide the manifold system to us. We'll purchase that separate, and then the bid will be for pouring a slab for the tank, purchase of a blower and hooking up the blower system and stuff for the safety equipment, and then the actual piping is going to be bid flange to flange, and so we can select which of those pieces we want to replace. It's not you can't really do it linear foot, it's flange to flange. So each individual section is called out by a letter, and we'll replace whichever ones we choose based off the available budget and need.
Commissioner, anybody else have any comments or anything they want to say for the good of the order? Meeting is adjourned.